Comrades, we're going to get started here. I'd like to start off by thanking everyone, first of all, for attending this IRPWA organised rally at the hellhole that is Maghaberry. As we all know, there are dozens of political prisoners in Maghaberry, Laoise and Hyde who are now currently on their 10th day of hunger strike in solidarity with their Palestinian comrade Dr.Issam Hijjawi. Irish Republicans have used the weapon of hunger strike at different times throughout the ongoing jail struggle. It shows the courage and dedication that Irish Republican prisoners have, not just to fight the criminalisation of our ongoing struggle, but the dedication to fight for each other and those political prisoners who inevitably follow behind. To get things on their way, I'd like to call on former Republican prisoner Issam Hijjawi to read a statement of support from the Samadoun Solidarity Network.
Yeah!
Solidarity message set on to the protests at the Maghaberry prison in support of the hunger strikers. Dear friends, comrades, hunger strikers, as Saladin Palestinian Prisoner Solidarity Network, we bring the highest salute to the hunger striking political prisoners, to their supporters working tirelessly to mobilise and organise support and solidarity, to those who are engaging in solidarity fasts, to Dr. Issam Hijjawi and the Syria 9, to all Irish Republican and Palestinian political prisoners, we say loud and clear that the imprisonment of Irish and Palestinian freedom fighters is illegal. It is an attack on the people's liberation movements. And if these attacks prove anything, it is that in the face of repression, we come together, we unite to fight. We unite to fight for the rights and liberation of all the Irish and Palestinian prisoners. And we also fight for George Islam Abdallah, the Lebanese communist struggler for Palestine, who is entering his 37th year of imprisonment by the French state. The Irish and Palestinian liberation movements are bound together by a shared struggle against colonialism and imperialism. We are witnessing this right before our eyes. We continue the struggle until we are all free. From Maghaberry prison to Ulfa prison, freedom for all political prisoners.
Yeah!
Can I now call on Shannon Jordan, the daughter of a current Republican prisoner, to read a letter penned by the wife of Dr. Issam Hijjawi.
Free my husband, free Issam Hijjawi. I strongly believe in his innocence and it's unfair to keep him prisoner for something he didn't do. I believe in him and trust him. He has always been a brave and courageous man, a man of his word, who not only saves lives by his profession as a GP, but also by volunteering to help others in need, even at the expense of his time and health. I admire his honesty, his kindness. He made my world a better place to be. I love him and miss him so much. Free Issam Hijjawi.
HDG Dairy member Margaret Rothschild will now read a statement on behalf of HDG, the Syrian National Youth Movement.
Ocharja agus comrade Gurmila Mahagat agus Scalair, Conchop and Shaw and you, Kentucky Leonard Scholarly Ochras. We in the Republican Youth Movement of HTB stand in full and complete solidarity with our comrades in hunger strike, as well as with our anti-imperialist comrade Dr. Issam Hijjawi, who now enter their 10th day without food. We also send love and solidarity to their families and loved ones who stand here with us today. Your struggle is our struggle. Our revolutionary struggle has always used the act of hunger strike as a final resort to highlighting injustice and cruelty whilst being held captive. Be it Moss Ash in 1917, Terrace McSwiney in 1920, or Raymond McCreish in 1981. Our comrades behind these gates, in Highbank and in Portlaoise jails, have taken the extraordinary step to embark on a hunger strike to highlight the injustices and degradation that they are forced with on a daily basis in 2020. 4 years after our 10 young revolutionary prisoners of war were starved to death fighting for political status, over 50 women and men now starve themselves in British and Free State jails in Ireland. We know why we stand here today. We will not shy away from our revolutionary Republican principles or ideals to placate the status quo and its lackeys. We will never apologise for supporting our men and women who are at the cold face of British imperialism in Ireland. The battle lines have been drawn and clearly laid out before us. We in HDG will not be found wanting when it comes to every aspect of our freedom struggle, from highlighting prisoners' issues and supporting their families, or steadfastly and directly challenging Britain's forces of occupation in Ireland. The youth will always rise to the occasion. The youth of this struggle and our movement here is growing, willing and ready, but we should always remember the words of hunger striker Terence McSwiney: if only a few are faithful found, they must all be the more steadfast for being but a few. While this struggle and our freedom struggle continues, while our families and friends continue to bear the brunt of British occupation in Ireland, it is our duty as young, enthusiastic revolutionaries to resist and be a voice for those shackled by Britain's rusty chains. Our comrades that find themselves in captivity want to live in peace and find peaceful and logical resolutions to issues at hand. But there will never be a truly peaceful environment in which our prisoners of war live until the walls and razor wire that contain them are smashed into dust and blown away by the winds of our revolutionary struggle. Victory to the revolutionary Republican prisoners of war in Ireland. Chuck the Arlaw.
Former Republican prisoner and Syria member Matt Johnson will now read a statement received today from the hunger strikers themselves.
Comrades, we the hunger-stricken Republican prisoners of Maghaberry, Laoise and Hyde salute you all for turning up today against all odds to show your support for us in our quest for justice against the occupation's MI5-led jail administration. Your support had given us strength, determination and inspiration. We promise we'll not let you down in this battle. If you were foolish enough to listen to the occupation's media and their mouthpieces, you'd be forgiven if you thought there were not a hunger strike. You would be forgiven for believing everything within the occupation's jails were okay. You also would be forgiven if you thought this hunger strike was about people arriving into a jail and having to endure a 14-day period of isolation in an attempt to minimise the effects of COVID-19 pandemic. This is a false narrative by the occupation and those who have been bought off or blackmailed into carrying their false messages. Dr. Issam Hijjawi, proud Palestinian anti-imperialist prisoner, endured a 14-day, 24-hour lockup in the filth and squalor of the occupation's Foyle House, devoid of exercise, fresh air and hygiene, coupled with the 4 strip searches being brought to Row House. Whilst Issam has been held in the squalor of Foyle House, he was denied vital medicine despite alerting the occupation's jailers to the seriousness of his condition and how necessary his medication was. It was still denied for days, which has resulted in multiplying his very serious medical condition, which has left Issam in severe and constant pain. The MI5-led jail administration were that worried about Issam's condition that they sent him for an MRI scan. On Issam's return to jail, he was not returned to Row House. Instead, he was taken to Foyle House on the false auspice of having to prepare a forced period of isolation. When Issam went to hospital, the occupation jailers were practicing proper anti-COVID measures, as were the medical staff he came in contact with. What was the need to put Issam into isolation? Were the occupiers jailers put into isolation? In the last 5 weeks, Issam has had 3 COVID tests and all have come back negative. A test for the COVID virus can be done and results received in a 24-hour period. On the very same day Issam was taken to hospital, a loyalist prisoner was also taken to hospital and on his return to jail was rightly returned to Bush House, which houses loyalist prisoners. This was the correct decision. In fact, 2 loyalist prisoners have been to an outside hospital in the time Issam has been punitively held in the squalor of Foyle House, and they have not been forced to endure the eluded COVID isolation on return to jail. The real politic is that MI5 have instructed the jail administration to take this punitive action, and the occupation's mouthpieces peddle the lies that everybody on return to jail goes into isolation. The occupation's media propagates these lies without proper investigation. On returning from hospital and learning he was being placed in the filth and squalor of Foyle House, Issam took the very brave decision to embark on a hunger strike until he was returned to Row House. In solidarity with our comrade Issam, all Republican prisoners on the island embarked on a hunger strike with Issam. Near 50 Republican prisoners are now on hunger strike in solidarity, although the bourgeois, politicians and media ignored us. Some allegedly pro-Palestinian supporters who feel comfortable highlighting the illegal occupation of Palestine and the plight of those held in the illegal occupation's jails in Palestine choose to ignore the Palestinian prisoner illegally detained by those illegally occupying the 6 counties, who is now on hunger strike. Do they think it's okay to support those causes which is safe and far away, but it's okay to ignore those on their own doorsteps? To quote that hero, Dr. George Hijjawi, you're either on the side of the oppressor or the oppressed. No one is neutral. There are no truer words. We, the hunger-stricken Republican prisoners of Maghaberry, Laoise and Hyde, will continue until Issam is back on Row House, where he belongs. We will also meet any attempts to criminalise us. We are political prisoners who have been imprisoned for opposing the illegal occupation of 6 counties, and we stand firmly by our Palestinian comrade Dr. Issam Hijjawi in his hunger strike. We again thank our families and you, our supporters, for turning out today. Your support means everything to us. Onwards to victory. Signed, the Republican prisoners, Maghaberry, Laoise and Hyde.
Can I now ask IRPWA activist, former Republican prisoner Stephen Mooney to speak on behalf of the Irish Republican Prisoners Welfare Association?
Comrades, I would like to thank each and every one of you for attending this solidarity protest here today outside the walls of Maghaberry. While we are assembled here today, CIRU, IRPWA and Eastigi activists in Dublin are also undertaking a 24-hour fast and camp at Kilmainham Jail in solidarity with Republican prisoners currently on hunger strike. The fact that when I look up at the crowd gathered here today, I see many familiar faces lifts my spirits. I also look out at the crowd and I see a broad swath of republicanism here, which the oppressor will no doubt note. This shows exactly the high esteem that Republicans hold our POWs. Also, there are solidarity greetings from comrades from all over the globe, from Palestine to Paris, Australia to America, and all over the world. This, no doubt, is a sign of unity and solidarity from revolutionary movements and anti-imperialists to Dr. Issam Hijjawi and the 50-plus men and women currently on hunger strike in the occupied 6 counties and 26 counties. Personally, I count myself as extremely fortunate, as I know every single hunger striker inside these walls. I know the 3 female hunger strikers in Hyde extremely well, along with a number of those on hunger strike in Laoise. They are not just my comrades, but also my friends, which is why my heart is heavy. But each and every man and woman on hunger strike is showing an inner strength, and the least I and each of you can do for them out here is to be strong for them and highlight the plight which they endure day and daily inside these walls. To quote Sean McVeigh, we can endure because we're right. But comrades, we should not forget that it is not just the men and women on hunger strike that are enduring. It is their families too. Every hour of every day they are beside themselves with worry, constantly listening for the phone to ring in the hope that it is their loved ones. It goes without saying that those on hunger strike always try to put their loved ones' mind at ease when they can, but as each day passes they worry more and more. When the families ring the jail for any update on their loved ones, they are met with a wall of silence from the oppressor, which heightens their worry. This is a deliberate ploy by the jails. They know what they are doing, as they are deliberately putting the families through additional turmoil. What they fail to realise though, is that the families are resilient. They are steadfast and wholeheartedly support the hunger strikers. This jail is controlled and run by MI5. They direct the regime, they direct policy, and in fact they were the key architect of the vindictive isolation policy that's currently in place within Maghaberry. The whole administration within this jail is managed and led by MI5 in an effort to break the will of Republican prisoners. The fact that over the past 3 generations, Republican prisoners have never once been broken or defeated has clearly been lost on our enemies. Comrades, as many of you can see here today, the media have turned up. But this is only due to us being here to protest. They have turned up to report on what they hope will be a confrontation with the RUC. Not because of the hunger strike, for they have reported very little on it. And when they did, it was only to carry the lies spewed out by the occupier. To the media, I say shame on you.
Yeah!
To constitutional nationalism in Sinn Féin and the SDLP, you represent and eagerly prop up the very system that the brave men and women on hunger strike, hunger and sacrifice against. It is noted that you have remained silent, refusing to make any comment at all, even to the families of our hunger strikers. God forbid anything happens to one of those on hunger strike. Any full reaction by you shall be exposed as exactly that, along with your crocodile tears. Constitutional nationalism is as responsible as the occupier for those on hunger strike, and they will be held as accountable as the occupier in the event of a tragedy befalling a hunger striker. Even today, it is not too late for the occupier to show common sense and move Dr. Issam Hijjawi back to row 4. It is within their gift to end the hunger strike, but they choose not to. Rather, they have chosen the path of conflict, as they have consistently done with Republican prisoners. For our part in the IRPWA, we will continue to highlight the abuses Republican prisoners suffer at the hands of their jailers, and we will consistently tell you the truth of what is happening behind the walls of Maghaberry, Hyde and Laoise. We will continuously work on behalf of Republican prisoners and their loved ones, and we ask that each and every one of you do the same, just as you are all doing today. As a former Republican prisoner myself, and as countless other former Republican prisoners can testify, the work the IRPWA do is invaluable. Once again, comrades, on behalf of the hunger strikers, their families, and the IRPWA, thank you so much for coming here today. And please make as much noise as you can, so that those in Republican Row House who know you are all here today can hear your voices. Chucky Orla!
On behalf of the Irish Republican Prisoners Welfare Association, I would again like to thank you all for coming here today in support of our friends, comrades and families who hold a special place in our hearts at this time. I'd just like to finish off a very well attended event with a call for continued support for the Republican prisoners and their families going forward. I'd encourage everyone to attend future pickets and protests organised by the Irish Republican Prisoners Welfare Association. Following this rally, there will be a 24-hour camp established here at the gates of Maghaberry, with those taking part fasting for a full 24 hours in solidarity with our imprisoned comrades. Those setting up will need the help, assistance and support of those here today before we disperse. Can I now ask that everyone finish with a massive round of applause for our POWs and their families.